In this video, I'm going to name the top 15 running backs in NFL history. Like anything, it's subjective, and all of these guys were great, so don't get your panties in a bunch if you disagree. Let's begin. Number 15, Earl Campbell. Campbell just barely makes this list due to his incredible first 3 seasons where he led the NFL in rushing yards 3 times and rushing touchdowns twice, including winning MVP in 1979. Campbell is also legendary for his physical and bruising style of play. This made him awesome to watch, but also shortened his career, as he only played 8 years, with his last 5 seasons alternating between merely good and completely forgettable. He also provided next to nothing as a receiver, although in the late 70s and early 80s when he was at his best, that wasn't as important for a running back as it is today. Still, when talking about peak performance, he's right up there with any running back ever. Number 14, Terrell Davis. Speaking of peak performance, that's exactly why Terrell Davis makes this list despite appearing in just 78 career games. He broke the 1,000-yard mark as a rookie, then went on a 3-year tear from 1996 to 1998 that ranks among the best stretches any running back has ever had. He made 3 first-team All-Pros and led the NFL in rushing twice, but his masterpiece was his 1998 season where he ran for over 2,000 yards, 21 rushing touchdowns, and won league MVP. Another feather in Davis's cap is that he's the best postseason running back of all time. In 8 playoff games, he averaged an astounding 142.5 yards per game while winning 2 rings and a Super Bowl MVP. Of course, despite all of this, it's hard to rank him any higher due to his extremely short career and also the success other running backs had in Mike Shanahan's zone blocking scheme once he left. Number 13, EDGERRIN James. Edge was a force to be reckoned with coming out of college, as he led the NFL in rushing yards in each of his first 2 seasons. He was on pace for another stellar season in 2001 when he tore his ACL. He was never quite the same level again afterwards, but he was still elite, racking up 2 more 1,500-yard seasons in 2004 and 2005 before leaving Indy to play in Arizona. He was a shell of himself in Arizona, but he still finished his amazing Hall of Fame career with over 12,000 yards rushing and 3,300 yards receiving. He certainly benefited from playing on a team with Peyton Manning in his prime, which is why he might not get as much respect in all-time discussions as he should, but Edge was a true complete back when he was at his best. Number 12, Tony Dorsett. Dorsett is another great running back who gets lost in the shuffle during all-time discussions. This could be for several reasons. The first being that he never had that one truly dominant season other top running backs have had. Another could be that he was never given as many carries consistently as some other all-time great running backs, and also Emmitt Smith's success with Dallas has made Smith, not Dorsett, the running back people think about when they think of the Cowboys. Dorsett was just incredibly consistent and efficient with his touches to the tune of finishing with almost 13,000 rushing yards and over 16,000 yards from scrimmage. The only thing really holding him back from being higher on this list is his penchant for fumbling and the aforementioned lack of dominant seasons. Number 11, Thurman Thomas. Thurman Thomas has one of the most overlooked peak stretches of any running back ever. From 1989 to 1992, he led the league in yards from scrimmage every year. He was a true complete back and what I like to refer as Marshall Faulk before Marshall Faulk. His versatility in pass catching out of the backfield was a major part of Buffalo's run of success in the early 90s with the infamous K-gun offense. Of course, we all know Buffalo lost 4 straight Super Bowls, but Thomas's performance in Super Bowl 25 would have gotten him Super Bowl MVP if not for Scott Norwood missing wide right. Thomas's efficiency fell off after year 5, which is why he's not higher, but he was as good as any running back in the league for almost half a decade, and that counts for something. Number 10, Curtis Martin. Curtis Martin was the definition of consistency. He ran for over 1,000 yards in each of his first 10 seasons, 4 times going over 1,400 yards and 3 times scoring 12-plus touchdowns. Martin was unique in that his best seasons actually came in his late 20s and early 30s, whereas most running backs peak in their early to mid-20s. He led the league in rushing yards and was named first-team All-Pro at age 31. He was also a capable, albeit not elite, pass catcher out of the backfield. He was remarkably durable too, missing just 8 games in 11 seasons. Martin wasn't a particularly flashy runner, which is why he can get overlooked in these discussions, but his consistency combined with good longevity for a running back requires him to be heavily considered as a top 10 running back ever, in my opinion. Number 9, O.J. Simpson. By far the classiest running back on this list, and there's not even a close second. O.J.'s post-football career has made it a requirement to put up the disclaimer that acknowledging his greatness as a football player does not mean one condones what he's done off the field. With that said, this massive piece of shit was unquestionably one of the best running backs ever. He got off to a slow start, but he hit his stride in year 4 and was named first-team All-Pro 5 straight years, leading the league in rushing yards 4 times and rushing touchdowns twice. He had his famous 2,000-yard season in 14 games in 1973 when he won MVP, but his 1975 season might have been even better, as he piled up more yards from scrimmage and more touchdowns. But all of this feels so hollow and meaningless now. Let's move on to other great running backs who haven't, never mind, I don't want to get sued. Number 8, Emmitt Smith. Emmitt Smith is not the best running back of all time, but he might have had the best career of any running back ever. He finished as the all-time rushing leader, the all-time rushing touchdown leader. He won 3 Super Bowls, a Super Bowl MVP, and a league MVP. He was named to 8 Pro Bowls and 4 first-team All-Pros. He led the league in rushing yards 4 times and rushing touchdowns 3 times. So why is he not ranked higher? Well, supporting cast matters. Smith was blessed with arguably the best offensive line in NFL history to run behind for most of his career. To be clear, I believe EMMITT had the ability to succeed in any situation, but he lucked out big time in this regard. He was nothing special as a receiver, and he wasn't a flashy runner, but he excelled at avoiding big hits, and his longevity at the position was special. Like a lot of other people, I just feel a couple other running backs could have done as well or better if put in his situation. Number 7, Adrian Peterson. Legendary child respecter Adrian Peterson is arguably the best pure runner of all time. He was an absolute nightmare to try and tackle due to his terrifying combination of size, strength, speed, and aggressive attitude. He broke the single-game rushing yard mark as a rookie in 2007. He ended up leading the league in rushing yards 3 times, rushing touchdowns twice, and making 4 first-team All-Pro nods. His crowning achievement, however, was in 2012 when he won league MVP running for almost 2,100 yards for a Vikings team that had no quarterback. He was a real throwback to previous eras where the running back was the focus as opposed to the passing game. Peterson can match up to anybody when it comes to running, but he falls short in the other areas. He was never a good pass catcher, and despite his physical gifts, he was terrible in pass protection. He also dealt with fumbling issues most of his career. Because of those flaws, he'll have to settle for only being the 7th best running back of all time. Number 6, Marshall Faulk. Faulk is arguably the best all-around running back of all time and certainly has a great argument as the best receiving back ever, as he racked up almost 7,000 yards receiving and 36 receiving touchdowns in his career. He finished his Hall of Fame career with over 19,000 yards from scrimmage. He made 7 Pro Bowls, 3 first-team All-Pros, and won MVP in 2000 while being a key piece of the greatest show on turf Rams. He won a Super Bowl in 1999 and led the league in yards per carry for 3 straight years from 1999 to 2001. Oh yeah, he also wasn't bad at, running the ball. He finished his career with over 12,000 rushing yards and 100 rushing touchdowns. Faulk's skill set would have translated to any era, and surprisingly enough, he managed to be one of the most exciting running backs ever, despite not being particularly athletic. Number 5, Eric Dickerson. Dickerson was kind of like the 1980s version of Adrian Peterson. He was unmatched as a pure runner, averaging an absurd 110.2 yards per game over his first 6 seasons, during which time he was named first-team All-Pro 5 times. He led the league in rushing yards 4 times and rushing yards per game 5 times. Dickerson's weaknesses were also similar to Peterson's. He wasn't much of a pass catcher or a blocker, and he fumbled a lot, but he was such a gifted runner you could forgive the flaws. He still owns the single-season rushing yards mark he set in 1984, but he fell off fast after turning 30. However, his first 5 years are arguably the most dominant 5-year stretch any running back has ever had this side of Jim Brown or O.J. Simpson. Plus, he gets bonus points for his goggles. God, they make me so horny. Moving on, number 4, LADAINIan Tomlinson. LT was hyped up as a complete back entering the NFL, and boy, did he live up to the label. Tomlinson did everything well. He was excellent in the open field, he was tough as nails in between the tackles, and he was unstoppable around the goal line. He was an all-time great pass catcher out of the backfield, and he was fearless in pass protection. He was very similar to his idol Walter Payton. He ended up making 5 Pro Bowls, 3 All-Pro teams, and won MVP in 2006 when he put up a record 31 touchdowns. He finished his stellar career with 162 total touchdowns. He also threw 7 more touchdowns for good measure. I wouldn't argue with anybody who says he's the GOAT. Number 3, Jim Brown. Without any context, Jim Brown is the best running back of all time. He played just 9 years, but his level of dominance was so extreme it almost doesn't matter. He led the league in rushing yards 8 times, rushing touchdowns 5 times, and yards from scrimmage 6 times. He won 3 MVPs and was named first-team All-Pro 8 times. Simply put, no other running back has ever displayed this type of dominance. So why isn't he number 1? Well, for several reasons. There is a bit of a Wilt Chamberlain factor when it comes to Brown's stats. He was by far the best athlete of his time, and it's fair to wonder if he would have been as dominant in later eras. It's also worth noting that once he retired, his backup Leroy Kelly stepped in and was immediately an All-Pro, pointing to how much support Brown had. Still, there's no denying he was a legendary caliber player. Number 2, Barry Sanders. By far the most exciting runner of all time. No running back has ever had more swagger with the ball in their hands than Barry Sanders, which is ironic considering his boring personality. Sanders was an elite running back from the moment he entered the NFL in 1989 to the moment he left it in 1998 at just the age of 30. He made the Pro Bowl every season of his career and 6 first-team All-Pros. His peak came in 1997 when he ran for over 2,000 yards and shared co-MVP with Brett Favre. He ran behind offensive lines that were, at best, average for most of his career. Sanders' biggest flaw was his tendency to try and turn every run into a touchdown, which could cause him to lose yards, but he would more than make up for it with his good plays. He wasn't a great receiver or in pass protection, but no running back in NFL history has ever instilled more fear into opposing defenses than Sanders. Number 1, Walter Payton. Sweetness gets my nod as the best running back of all time due to his complete skill set. He had excellent longevity for a running back while also maintaining a high level of performance for over over a decade. He finished his career with 9 Pro Bowls, 5 first-team All-Pro selections, and won the 1977 MVP. He was also the best offensive player on the legendary Super Bowl-winning 1985 Bears. He ran for almost 17,000 yards while being an excellent pass catcher and amazing pass protector. But what makes Peyton's career so impressive was that he accomplished all he did while being the sole focus of opposing defenses. He played with terrible quarterbacks for most of his career and produced all-pro caliber numbers regardless. He was just an excellent football player in every sense of the word, and a guy I would want to go to war with on my team.